Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for Ohio. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha, welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today we are previewing the Packers Week 11. I know we had the bye off by a game and stuff, so I'm trying to recount and stuff. But the Week 11 matchup with the Chicago Bears, they are going to that dump of turd of a piece of turf that is Soldier Field to face the Bears for their third division game of the season. The Packers are looking for their first divisional win and to probably keep pace, not gain ground on the division leaders, since the Lions and the Vikings are again facing inferior competition, with the Lions facing, even if Lawrence was starting, the Jags are a much lesser team than the Lions, but Mac Jones is starting for the Lions, and the Vikings are facing the pitiful Tennessee Titans. So Green Bay's got to get a win. It's a little more pressure. Got to get that win on Sunday to keep pace with the rest of the division. And you got to start getting these division wins. You struck out on your first two at this point, and you can't afford to lose this one, especially against the team that's the bottom in the division. And if you want to have any hope at being able to catch the division lead this season, you're going to need help. But it all starts this Sunday. So, Joe, we're coming off the bye. I'd say expectations are running rather high, especially with the promising practice news. Okay, initially reporters were saying that everyone participated, but then the report comes out, including Marshawn Lloyd, but then the report comes out that Colby Wooden did not in fact participate, but everyone else was a participant of some sort. As I said, Marshawn Lloyd has its 21-day window open, and the big news is that Jordan Love was a full participant in practice. So it's looking promising coming out of the bye, Joe.
Well, we also got to talk about how they're also down an edge rusher because of the Preston Smith trade. So we didn't have an episode after the trade deadline. Or no, I guess the trade deadline. Yeah, did we have an episode after trade deadline?
Yeah, we did. We had Sunday, the one we recorded Sunday, and what's it called? That came out on Tuesday. So
okay, yeah, everything's running together for me lately. But yeah, it's good to see with the injury report, everybody's participating for the most part. I don't know the Colby Wooden thing because, yeah, I'm just now seeing it. The big question that I have, and of course it doesn't have to happen immediately, but at some point within the next 3 weeks, they'll have to make a decision. Who does Lloyd replace? I was kind of talking about this on Blue Sky with another gentleman, and all three running backs on the roster right now have looked legit. Brooks is getting more playing time, and that includes him being able to pass protect a little bit more, but even given rushing attempts, he's been doing pretty good. Wilson has been pretty good. They're not going to cut Josh Jacobs for Marshawn Lloyd. So are they going to try to justify keeping four running backs? And if they do, then who gets replaced on the roster? And if they don't, which one of the two gets released?
Yeah, it opens up a bunch of possibilities. My thinking, God, it's such a coin flip because it really did look like Brooks took the running back 2 spot from Wilson, but then I think he got himself in the doghouse by making that decision to not get out of bounds ahead of halftime against the Lions, and you saw Wilson get in the game more in the second half of that game went on. So yeah, it's just really tough to tell. I have this feeling we're not going to find out this week. I get the feeling they're going to kind of slow play it with Lloyd's return. They've already done that to an extent, and he's still listed with he went on with the ankle, and there's some discussion if he picked up the hamstring or they're just listing it because he's dealt with the hamstring in preseason and stuff. So kind of not great that he's listed that way after coming up, and he spent, what was it, like 6 or 7 weeks on IR. So not ideal that he's listed with both the ankle and the hamstring. So there's
I
the,
think that was the original stuff, was that he was dealing with the hamstring ankle.
yeah, but it's just the
And they
whole
will
like,
have to list him on the report because he's not cleared yet.
there you go. Yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, I, I think you're right that his designation is like frozen from the time he was put on IR. So that would make sense. So, but yeah, I'm kind of curious if he is back this week or if they slow play it a week and bring him back next week. But yeah, I'm excited to see him play. But yeah, I mean, you asked me, 10 times who between Wilson and Brooks gets cut, and I do think, especially after they traded away Preston, I get the feeling that they're they're going to, because my answer before would have been, oh, Brenton Cox gets cut. But now that you're sitting the way you are, I'm kind of curious if they, yeah, just chance releasing Brooks or Wilson, signing them back to the practice squad and having their practice squad elevations available.
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I think they have an open roster spot because of the Preston trade.
Yeah, that's what I'm counting right now. Hold on.
Um, but that still means if they don't fill it with another position, that they're still going to be running with 4 running backs. And how I just don't see how you can justify having the 4 running backs, because none of them are really going to be much contribution to special teams, because you don't really have running backs on special teams.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It would be so hard to justify having that many running backs and having as many wide receivers as they have.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that they'll make the decision this week. I know they're not going to make the decision this week. They'll give him. They'll probably use up the full 21 days, just because
Yeah.
that's how typical it is with them.
And you're right. They are at 52 players. So who knows? You might be right. They might just activate him and then have him be a game day inactive. So because you're right, the point you brought up is that even if my thought is correct that Brooks is kind of in the doghouse, Brooks has proven himself to be such a good pass protector that it'd be really hard for Lloyd to just take a spot away from him unless he has, really just they have a slice of plays set up for him, which it seemed like they did to open the season. But it remains to be seen if they're going to go down that road or if they'll ease him back into the game and stuff, especially with, Wilson looked good, right? In that Detroit game. Brooks has had his moments, and Jacobs has just been so consistent and steady for the team this year. So,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, there with the money that he's being paid and the workload that he's had, that Jacobs isn't even in the equation right now.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, as a method for potentially like lessening his load and stuff. You have another, but you're right. It is hard to have 4 running backs active on game day, especially because I think Wilson is the only one who really plays special teams. So maybe Brooks does. I'll keep an eye on that come Sunday. But yeah, they don't get a lot of snaps at special teams. The 3 current running backs. So that remains to be seen moving forward. But we could focus on the Packers, and I know we'll keep going back to the Packers in this episode. But this is our opponent preview. It's the Bears, and they suck. Like, all kinds of turmoil is coming out of Chicago this week. From the front office, the team and front office kind of making comments about like, oh, did they rush Caleb? Are they and outside forces saying, oh my God, are they just doing the same thing to Caleb that they did to Justin Fields? Shane Waldron getting fired, and now like, initially Chicago people were saying like, oh my God, it's such a great hire. and now the voices are saying, oh well, Seattle ran him out of town and wasn't sad to see him go, and now you're kind of seeing it with Chicago. And then also what came out today is the rumor that, well, I don't know if it's a rumor or like actual locker room talk, that veterans wanted Tyler Badgett to get snaps in the game, like to potentially start. And there's not a lot of these guys who played with Badgett. I think most of those receivers and stuff are gone, so I don't think they know how bad Badgett actually is. But to each their own. You know, the red speech from Shawshank Redemption, whether hope is a good or a bad thing for the Bears. Hope at quarterback has been a bad thing, and it has torn many a man apart, as Red would say. So, yeah, it's their quarterback situation is such a mess. But I guess we'll start there. Like, are you at all surprised that they're having the struggles on offense that they are?
Honestly, yes. And the reason, and I know I was kind of getting picked on when I went on live with Ramage and Jimmy a few weeks back for a post game, but from everything that I've seen of his college days, hang on just a second. Sorry, I had to belch and I didn't want to do it on friggin' microphone. That's what you get when you rush home and eat something right real quick before you friggin' have to record. um, from everything that I watched with Caleb Williams pre-draft, yes, he has his issues, but he still is a playmaker. And with all the weapons that they have on that team, DJ Moore, the shell of Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, uh, uh, there's another receiver. Rome Odunze. You know, they've got the running backs, Swift and Roshan Johnson, who I love coming out his rookie year. They have the talent on that team to be able to do something. I was trying to think, is Eberflus a defensive minded coach or is he an offensive minded coach?
He's a defensive minded guy. He was, the last time we saw him coordinate a defense, he was the Colts defensive coordinator when we played him back in 2020.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, because I know they said that I know Waldron was fired and all that stuff, and of course it makes you wonder about that decision to sign him as the offensive coordinator anyway, because now this is his second job he's lost in less than 12 months. So I mean that kind of has to tell you a little bit. But I couldn't remember if Eberflus was a defensive minded or offensive minded, because then it breaks down to, well, if he's an offensive minded coach, Waldron's not calling the plays anyway. But like I said, you can tell what's bothering Caleb Williams. There's dysfunction with his offensive line. They're not giving him the proper time. He's holding on the ball too long because he's afraid of getting that hit, because his line's always collapsing on him. And they do have some nice talent on the offensive line. The kid out of Tennessee, Darnell Wright, I was high on him. I'm glad I'm not bigger in the content creation world, because I said the same thing that one guy said about him, that he was going to be strictly a right tackle because that was going to fit his mold, and then he jumped all over the guy for saying that. But he looks, I thought he was pretty good. I don't know. This is where my lack of watching the Bears hurts, because I don't know what the biggest issues with the offensive line are. Is White doing right, or damn it, I keep saying the wrong name. Wright doing right. There's what's the other kid that they were really high on? Jenkins?
Yeah, Tevin Jenkins. He's never healthy. Wright's battling an injury too right now, and so yeah, like just on that front, that's really been one of the bigger problems. Excuse me. There I go burping.
Now you're having problems.
That's been the Bears' bigger problem, is that this line hasn't been healthy in like 3 or 4 weeks, and that's kind of when Caleb's issues really started to prop up. He had his hot moments. He has his times where he's looks really good at moments, but then um, the bad habits that pop up from his time at USC, where he's bailing on clean pockets and stuff, and not necessarily to the point of seeing ghosts, but that idea of where he's anticipating pressure that's not quite there and stuff like that. Those issues are popping up, but part of it is that when you don't know who's going to start in front of you, it's hard to get that trust. And just this week against the Packers, the news on Tevin Jenkins is not great. He's out. He missed practice on Wednesday, and they're like, "Oh, we'll take it up to game time," kind of thing. Braxton Jones is injured, but I think he was a limited participant. Darnell Wright was a limited participant. So that's your two offensive tackles who are not healthy. Your right guard who is potentially out this week, and then they just cut their other guard, Nate Davis, who some Bears fans were like talking all high and mighty about. And then I don't think their center is anyone to write home about either. So yeah, it's just dysfunction, partly due to injury and partly because some of the other guys just aren't as good as some people prognosticated them out to be. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that you know Caleb is a rookie, and on outside of rare circumstances, rookie quarterbacks will always hit a rough patch. You talk about it. You talked about it with our draft class, where it's like you worry about the rookie wall, and you worry about when the league change, adjusts back, and how are you going to react to it. We see Javon Bullard going through that a little bit right now, partly because he's being put into a lot of different. He's having to wear a lot of different hats and stuff, and but with Caleb, that's the thing, is like you see this all the time with young quarterbacks. It's like, okay, you have a stretch of like some really nice play, and then it's like, what does the league? How do you react to what the league does to you to take away some of those things? And his play has been inconsistent. You have DJ Moore, who's had some not so glowing moments the past few weeks. Xavier McKinney took time out. What was that?
I I'm going to ask you about that because I don't know the whole situation because I didn't watch any of the games or anything like that. I did see where he like walked off the field in the middle of a play. Was that injury wise or was that because of?
Okay, I legitimately thought he was hurt because I don't think he came back in for their next drive, and like he did get listed with a ankle or a hamstring or something like that. So that one, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I know you can milk it, but you can tell like as he hobbles over to the bench, like he had done something to his leg, and he was on a bolo tire kind of thing. But the problem is that he then followed that up with a couple more weeks of where he's like kind of dogging routes and stuff like that, and so McKinney, and I do think Xavier is more, he's more lighting more up because Moore had the audacity to like talk about like, oh, who the hell is Xavier McKinney? We don't care. We're going to be a great offense, blah blah blah. And to that vein, I do think McKinney is correct to say like, oh, you're talking so much shit when everything was all great in the offseason, but once the going got tough, you just quit on your team kind of. And to that degree, you know, like I said, with the Cardinals one where, I thought Moore was injured and he went off, and I likened it to the Death Star trench scene from A New Hope, where Luke tells Wedge Antilles like, "Just go, you're no good back there," kind of thing. And there is a degree to like, if you're that hurt playing, it's like, yeah, you can't move, you can't cut, you can't get to the ball. So it's like, it's not a good look, but I understand. But you go and have another week or two where you have similar like bad effort and body language and stuff, and you're just kind of like, okay, so maybe he wasn't hurt the other time and stuff. And it part of it is like, maybe he is that hurt, but also if you're that hurt, then why are you playing kind of thing. Like, so I don't, you can't blame Caleb for that one. Do they blame Waldron? I don't know. It's a cacophony of mess ups on the Bears. Their offense was a sham, and it was a house of cards, and the bottom fell out of it a few weeks ago. But Green Bay can't take that for granted. I know Jair participated today, but Lafleur was not as glowing of his chances to play this week as you would hope to hear coming out of the bye week. It was still a more tepid, like, we'll take it up to game time and stuff.
I
I
get
do
that,
think
but I'm going to say the same thing that I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't trust anything that comes out of a press
yeah,
conference
yeah,
because it's all just coach speak. It's all just, is he playing mind games? Is he playing, is he speaking truths? Is he speaking half truths? You just use a Star Wars reference. I'm going to do the same thing. From a certain point of view, we're going to take it up to game time. But he already knows the decision's going to be made, so it. I don't trust press conferences. I think they just need to do away with them, just because that's all you get is just a bunch of coach speak, and you don't actually get anything out of them anymore.
yeah. I do agree to that point, but it is just one of those like more selfish kind of reactions. It's like, okay, you like didn't play the week before the bye and you sat the bye, so like, damn it, wish you were. So it's like I said, it's more of a selfish reaction than it is like a, oh no, like truly like down in the dumps thought. But we'll see where they are at the end of this week. But yeah, like, um going back to the DJ Moore thing, like, he's not listed on the injury report this week, so it brings even more consternation onto where he's at, where he is mentally, and is he there to help or hurt the team, kind of thing. But Green Bay can't take anything for granted. This is another inflection point, I think, for the season where hopefully Jair is back, Evan, and hopefully Evan Williams is back, because you want to see your secondary healthy, you want to see your secondary play together, and really just try to take even more of the wind out of the Bears. Bears fans have talked a lot of shit about how good they were going to be this season, and to go be able to go out there and just say like, nah, you're still the bottom, you're still the cellar dwellers of the division. Like, sure, we've had some disappointing moments, the Packers that is, this season, but you are still the Bears and of the 21st century, which have been just a complete lackluster disappointment of a team. So put your money where your mouth is, kind of time for the Packers is what I'm saying. Like I said, you hope you have Ja out there, Evan Williams back, so that you can get your preferred secondary out there and just see what you can do to what is a talented receiving core. For all the slack, the smack that Moore is having to take this week, um, he is still talented, and I have no idea what the Bears. That's the thing too, is like, when you switch coordinators, there's always the chance that you end up with not necessarily a desperate team, but like the new play caller is just in huck it at the wall mode, and you've got film on what the Bears have done for 9 weeks out of the season, but it kind of doesn't matter because that guy who was calling plays isn't there, and so it's like there's two ways you can go. Is you can get this super frenetic play calling because the new guy is just like, well, what we were doing wasn't working, so fuck it, we're gonna just try a whole bunch of shit and see what sticks. Or do they just lean further in and say like, well, we don't have time to change everything, so we're just gonna stick with what we know, kind of thing, and leave it be and stuff. So we'll see. But the Packers really do have to be ready for anything. In the preseason, that was the joke last year, was like, oh my god, Justin Fields has a 50-yard touchdown throw, and it's like it was a screen to DJ Moore and stuff. And as much as they did kind of handle Moore last year, it was just him. And yes, I know it's like a little bit something past the carcass of Keenan Allen. He's still pretty solid as a possession receiver, and Roma Dunze has had about a highlight a week, and how much of that has been limited by him being a rookie that needs to learn more, and how much of it is just poor play calling remains to be seen. But Packers, like, don't be that team that fucks around and finds out. Like, this is a week for, like I said, the secondary to get back on its feet, and for the pass rush to like I said, I think that they've been doing a lot of good things well moving forward the past couple of weeks. We've seen the edges get more wins. We've seen, hopefully Devontae is, being another week healthier. He's not even on the injury report, so hopefully he'll be able to get back to where he was prior to his injury. And Kenny continues to, take to the new system. And then because you should be able to pick apart this O line whether it was healthy or not, and just get in Caleb's head and just put him in the torture chamber for all intents and purposes. So
Or Badgent.
yeah, or small hands Badgin. So we'll see what happens with that. And that's the thing is like, that was the concern last year. Is it's like, oh god, Barry's gonna make this rookie look like a 4-time All Pro, and I do think Halfley is gonna do all the kind of things that are just gonna stress Caleb mentally and physically. Mentally before the snap, physically after the snap, with his double A gap looks pre-snap, and then all the like the zone pressures that they've put together this season. So really excited to see that, and we'll see what the Packers can do on defense against this Bears offense that, like I said, it's been a hodgepodge. They're bottom third in just about everything in the league. The, yeah, the only things that the only things that they're around average at is the number of rushes per game and number of passes per game, but their actual like yardage, output, efficiency, those all suck. So it just
Well, yeah,
shows
I'm
that,
looking at it right now. I mean, their numbers are so weird on things.
yeah,
Like they're 24th in points scored. They're 7th in points allowed, so they're not giving up. They're giving up less points than the Packers do. They're +8 in the takeaway differential, but then they're 30th in passing yards, 24th in rushing yards, 24th in defensive rushing yards, but they're 7th in defensive passing yards.
yep.
And that makes no sense. Those numbers make no sense for an NFL team.
And you've kind of seen why, because they do. So this is where it kind of goes hand in hand, where um, they
Uh-oh,
they're
baby's asleep, so he had to go. He had to go soft voice.
so what's it? So they're just so disjointed on offense, but their defense has been solid, like you said. The stats do back that up. But yeah, and they muck up the game. You kind of saw it. Like one of the more high profile games they played was the Sunday night game against the Texans, and I know the Texans have been really inconsistent this year, but the Texans took a lead at halftime. I think it was a 2-score lead, and then they like couldn't do shit after halftime, and it was because the Bears defense was just, especially that front, was just picking apart the Texans O line. And while I do think what Green Bay has in its favor is this might be the best O line that the Bears defense has faced this season. And on top of that, Montez Sweat is a little bit of a question mark with an ankle injury. And if he doesn't play this Sunday, their pass rush just goes down the shitter, because much similar to like the Packers cornerback room without Jair, the Bears pass rush is relatively anemic if Montez Sweat doesn't suit up for a game, because he's that guy that demands that kind of attention from opposing offenses. He's just, a relentless rusher, and if he doesn't play, their pass rush, like I said, it's anemic to not almost non-existent. So it's this game sets up really well for Green Bay. And like you said, they have kind of weird stats. So like you said, 7th in points allowed, 13th in yards per game. So you can gain yards on them, and the place you can actually hurt them is on the ground. And so it's the whole: are you going to stay committed to the run game? They're 24th in rush yards allowed, 133 per game, and the big one is they allow 4.8 yards per rush. So same thing that I said to for the Lions game. It's like, it's great that especially now Jordan probably should be a lot healthier, but damn it, like, you don't have to lean on the pass game. You can, you know, we don't need Jordan. That's the thing, is like, I do want to see how they recalibrate coming out of the bye. Is like, are they intent on like showcasing Jordan as like a top 3 quarterback, or are you going to do what it necessary to win games this season and stuff? And are you going to plug your run game and play off of it? Which I do think Jordan's injuries going, before the bye, the knee and then the groin, they did prohibit that to an extent because, you know, he couldn't go under center as often as you wanted and, all of that kind of stuff. So we'll see where the team goes from there. But you just gotta you just look at the stats and they're not a good run defense. They're very solid against the pass. They give up, like you said, the seventh fewest passing yards per game. They're kind of middle of the pack in yards per pass and completion percentage. Or no, completion percentage, they're top five. But otherwise, sack percentage, interceptions thrown, or passes picked off, they're kind of like middle of the pack in both. But that's why even more so, get the run game going and take advantage of these linebackers. You did it last year. I know that you don't have a running back who is definitely the passing game mismatch that Aaron Jones was, but you do have the capability to put Jaden Reed in the backfield. Tucker Kraft coming on would be a big way to take advantage of those linebackers, and that's why you just got to be aggressive and just stick with it, stick with the run game, and like I said, just don't make the game more complicated than it has to be. Just take it to Chicago and force them, like make them prove that they are as tough as they like puff their chests out and say they are. Which, like I said, the stats don't really paint that same picture for them.
For sure. Uh, I mean, and everybody's got to remember that the Bears are always going to play the Packers tough anyway, just because of the rivalry that they've always had. So it doesn't matter what the records are for each team. They always play them tough. They're always going to, and as much as we ragged on the Philly game for the Brazil field, you know, Soldier Field's not much better when it comes to that shit.
No.
I don't know what the weather's supposed to be this weekend in Chicago, so I mean, who knows what that condition of that field's going to be. But looking at the stats, I would, or I mean, the rankings, I would lean on the run game. I mean, especially if they decide to uh, activate Marshawn Lloyd, then you got four friggin' running backs right there. Just keep, rotating them in and out, and give everybody a touch or whatever. But I also think that they need to, uh, on top of that, I think they need to start doing more play action stuff. And the
Yeah.
play action stuff is going to depend on Jordan's health. So just kind of looking at it right now, it says it's supposed to be, as of today of this or tonight of this recording, 60 degrees, mild sun and areas of high clouds in the morning, then mostly cloudy in the afternoon. So it shouldn't be too bad in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Only 24%
Uh,
chance of rain, so nothing too outrageous.
but that also depends on if they go out and water the field before the game, just so it will be shitty. Got to take advantage of anything that they can. But it's I. You've said it before, and an article that'll be releasing tomorrow with this episode. Carlos said it. They're 0-2 in the NFC North right now. They cannot afford to lose another one in the division. So they're going to have to step up and play. Now, if it gets down to it and Jordan's hurting, pull him. Just pull
Yep.
him. I'm not even going to mess with it. Just pull him because they cannot afford to lose this game.
Yeah. And I know some people are going to scoff at that notion, but like you said, the last few games, the last few Chicago games, they've started off close, and then Green Bay has kind of pulled away in each of them. But even last year, the Week 18 game last year, Chicago went up early, and it took Green Bay like almost two quarters to score in that one. So And that was at home. So expect some funny business, expect some weird things to happen. Like I said, Chicago is going to be, desperate to prove itself against, their biggest rival, and to like play for quote unquote, quote unquote, play for honor after Waldron got fired and stuff like that. And their offense is probably going to just huck things at the wall. But yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, this is a game that Green Bay just cannot afford to lose. So that's kind of how it sets up. And so, Joe, we'll take it into your over unders. What do you got for us this week?
Nothing.
Okay.
No, I really haven't been able to think about it because I was doing some stuff earlier and I just completely blanked out on it. But I mean, like normal, I'll just go off the top of my head. So since we think it's going to be a high run game, I'm going to set this a little bit higher. I'm not going to set it too high because then that's just ridiculous. But I'm going to go 75.5 rushing yards for Josh Jacobs.
I'm going to say no, but only because, especially if Lloyd gets activated off IR, I just think they're going to really spread it around this week. And as much as I think they should lean on the run, I don't know. I just get the feeling that we're going to end up throwing the ball like 30, 35 times and only run it like 20 something times. So, not because he won't be efficient. I think just because game circumstances and stuff that it'll turn out where he'll be at like 70, maybe even like 75. So he'll like just miss it, but it'll still be at a good clip kind of thing.
I'm going to take over because I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just say that they're going to do the run heavy thing. I'm not sold that Lloyd is going to be activated for the week. Like I said, I think if nothing else, they'll actually take up to the full 21 days just to see where he stands and then make roster decisions from that. Because, like I said, I'm not sold that they're going to run with 4 running backs on the roster. So, I'll take the over on that. Let's do my favorite one, especially if they do run with a backup quarterback. And like you were kind of alluding to, with them having fired their offensive coordinator, the guy that's going to be the intern taking over, he's going to start doing he's going to dig deep into that playbook just to find anything to get this offense going. And so I'm going to say my favorite one, over under half an interception for Xavier McKinney.
All right, it's after the bye and it's the playoff push, so I'm going to say over. No, we're taking the gloves off, and yeah, but this game just sets up so well for him. It's a rookie quarterback. Like you said, we've both been saying this episode, there's just a lot of turmoil in this Bears offense. So I do think it just sets up for X to have an interception this week.
I think so too. But I have a feeling, and I know this is going to go against the grain for everything in the world, I'm going to say no. And the reasoning is I think this will be the game that the 2 rookie safeties it's their coming of age game, I guess you can call it, where they're going to be the ones making the plays. Because as much as I want to see X get one, and like you were kind of talking about earlier, the trash talk between DJ Moore and Xavier McKinney, Xavier's going to go out there and play his heart out just to stick it to DJ Moore. But I think they're going to avoid him at all costs, so it's going to leave it open for Evan Williams and Javon Bullard to really step up and make the play. So I'm going to take the no portion of it, although deep down inside I will be hoping for that other one. I'm going to do 2 more. One is another oldie but goodie that I keep going back to just in hopes that they're going to actually fucking do it. And that's over and under 2.5 sacks for the Packers defense.
Fuck it. Again, over. I feel like this is the first time where other than the Titans game, because the Titans O-line is just that bad, this is a similar situation where it's like they kind of have to, partly because the Bears O line is just in that much turmoil, and Caleb is that lost out there, really. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I'm going to take the over just in hopes that they take very much advantage of the weakened offensive line that the Bears are going to be throwing out there. Because, like we were both talking about earlier, Wright was on the injury report. Braxton Jones is on the injury report. Tevin Jenkins is on the injury report. Kieran Amagaji is on the injury report. That's like 90% of their starters right there that are on the injury report. So, and 2 out of the 4 did not practice. So, yeah, I'm going to say they're going to take full advantage of it, or I'm going to hope they take full advantage of it
Yeah,
and go over. So my last one is kind of a goofy one, but with the game that they're playing, with the hopes that the Packers are going to take full advantage of a weak Chicago Bears, over under 2.5 punts for the Celtic Cannon.
I'm gonna say over just because I don't think they'll have figured out all of their issues coming out of the bye. I do think they're gonna score 30, but I do think they're gonna have 3 or 4 drives that end up in no points.
I'm going to go the other end. I'm going to say under, and just because, and not because I think that I just think with the weakened defense or the weakened team that is the Chicago Bears, that you're going to see a lot more fourth down tries and go from there, because I think LaFleur's getting to the point where he's just going to start forcing the issue. All right, guys, you have to go out and make a play. You have to go out and make a play. And I think that'll lead to a little bit more fourth down tries. So I'm going to take the under on the Celtic Cannon.
Sounds good.
And yes, I am still going to try pushing that as his nickname.
I dig it. That's a good one. Better than me just calling him the Irishman. So
Yeah, don't do the accent. We'll lose the little bit of listeners that we already have.
so anything else though for this game, Joe? Or like I said, I feel like this one, and this isn't us like taking the Bears lightly, but it's just hard to talk about this team that just looks so stuck in the mud and rudderless at this point. Like this is
It's
a game
been the
that
same team for
yeah.
the last 400 years, it feels like. It just,
Change the names, but the thing is the same. Yeah.
yeah. For the game, no. There are a couple things I do want to mention. There is no STFU this week. I am contemplating deleting the app formerly known as Twitter, and not because I'm getting off social medias, but because I have made the transfer over to the new wonderful world of Blue Sky. So if you do want to get off the cesspool known as Twitter, Blue Sky is a wonderful place right now. There's not as much hatred. There's not as much vitriol going on. So you can find me over there.
Same for me. Yeah, I'm still straddling both because not all the mainstream Packers reporters have made the move yet, so still need to have coverage across the 2 platforms. But starting to pick up my presence on Blue Sky as well, and yeah, we will. Like we said, we are in the process of making the podcast move over to Blue Sky as well. So keep an eye out for that. For those of you who have made the move. Website is still the same, ohanapackers.org. As Joe mentioned during the podcast, Carlos has a couple more articles coming out this week. Our other writers are picking it up after the team is coming off the bye week. So stay tuned for more articles. Check out the merch. Joe continues to add new designs. Our 2 initiatives are still going. Military awareness and cancer awareness. So please support both of those initiatives and obviously support us as well. As we mentioned, we don't have the Blue Sky account set up quite fully yet for the show, but we're getting there. But We are still on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Ohana_Packers, Instagram at Ohana Packers Edition, and on Facebook, just search Ohana Packers Edition. Then for the podcast, please follow it on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And positive or negative comments, we want to hear them all so that we can create the content you're looking for. The Packers look for their 7th win of the season coming up on Sunday and their first division win. As we said, this is a must win at this point. You cannot come out of this week with a loss. That would just be so disappointing. And basically, people aren't going to want to hear it, but it would basically shut the door on the possibility of winning the division, especially with Detroit and the Vikings basically having the table set for 2 almost guaranteed wins for them this weekend, with them facing just inferior AFC teams this week in the Jaguars with a backup quarterback and the Titans with whatever they're throwing on the field. So the Packers cannot afford to lose this game. They cannot afford to drop a 4th NFC game at this point of the season because, as much as I think some people have put that they're like 90% to make the playoffs at this point or whatever, you've just got to start winning these division games. And if you want to have any hope of winning the division, you got to win the remaining 4 on your schedule. So we'll see how this team looks, if they've tightened the screws down and cleaned up a lot of their mistakes that they were committing over the opening of the season. And that's going to do it for us tonight. So as we usually say, go Pack go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for OPE. You know who wanna go.